What is a meme? What is a meme? Think about that and type it in there if you would. And while we're thinking about that, the Zion Juniors will be meeting in a different Zoom meeting after worship today. So that's on our Facebook page. Check that out. Another thing to check out and to be reminded for the good of community. It's not necessarily a church announcement, but remember to fill out your census. That sounds like a silly thing, but with all of this funding and all the things that are going on in the world, make sure you're filling out your census while you're sitting around, or if you're not sitting around, it can take just a few minutes. All right, so what is a meme? A meme is a funny, relevant picture, a picture or a phrase that goes viral. Meme is a social commentary. What do you mean? Thank you, Michael. I appreciate that. Um, those funny moment clips to add to a post. Um, an internet joke that builds on other internet jokes and internet culture. Yes, all of those things are true. Oh, something else just popped up. A 21st century hieroglyphic. Yes, that's probably too real as well. But a meme, among all of those things and more, a meme is an idea or a theme that passes from person to person, intending to influence culture and the way that a community thinks. We have memes all around us that may be online or maybe not. Things that are intentionally put out there to get repeated and usually get passed around to create a way of thinking, to influence culture. And of course, we know that they're very popular on social media, whether it be Instagram, Twitter, Facebook. Some of you text them to one another, and lots more. There are memes out there right now that are reminding us to stay home and to stay safe, and using some funny ways to do it. My favorite one, and I should have just pasted it and put it up here, but my favorite one is, so now that things are getting better, it doesn't necessarily mean we should just all go out, right? It's like when your parachute opens and you begin to slow down, that doesn't mean you take the parachute off, right? That there are things that are influencing us and trying to change culture. That's one of my favorites. But memes express a value. Some express an opinion. Some are really direct, like you get it, right? You get it right away. Stay home, stay safe, and various colors and other things that are being sent around. Some are deeply sarcastic. Those are my favorite. The ones that you don't that have a little bit of a hint and some wit to them. Some memes are absolutely wrong. They're misinformation that are being sent around, maybe intentionally or maybe not. There are some right now that are promoting hatred or suspicion of others based on gender or on race. There are some that are intended to make us happy. Some are intended to make us angry. Some are intended to increase our awareness of whatever issue it is that's coming across. Some are intended to inspire us to action. This letter from Peter, the letter from Peter is a meme. I mean, it might not look like it, but that's what it is. It's a meme. For its time, this letter came across like a meme that comes across on your Facebook or your Twitter or your Instagram accounts. It was written by leaders of the church and was sent out far and wide. And unlike the letters of Paul, Paul wrote to a specific community about a specific issue. But this one was not written to a specific church. The letters of Peter were sent out far and wide to multiple churches, maybe even the whole community, the known Christian community of the time. It was meant to be sent to the entire community because the entire community was going through it. The entire community, didn't matter where you were. Maybe it manifested itself differently in different spaces, but every community was going through it, going through hard times, going through death and destruction. They were communities that were under siege. Because as you know, the Easter season did not feel like Easter for several generations. The Easter the Easter season wasn't even a season in the ways that we think about it. See, Jesus rises from the dead, and there's an empty tomb, and everyone is scared and runs away. And then he goes to enters into the rooms, as we heard in the gospel today, where the disciples are hiding. And then a little bit later, he ascends into heaven, and then he appears to the disciples again in a locked room, and there's this Pentecost moment, and everyone is sent out. And they build underground churches with, the mark of the fish on the door as a sign that this is where the followers of the way reside or where they meet. No public showing, because if you did, depending upon where you were and what your situations were, your property could be seized, your life taken, your community dispersed, whatever. And this went on for generations. So if you're a leader in all of this, what do? You send a meme. Remind them of the center of their values and encourage them to hold on. And remind them what resurrection means for them. Not that everything is going to get better, but there is new life and new life abundantly. Because sometimes there's no end in sight, or it doesn't feel like the end is in sight. Times are not going to be changing anytime soon. So Peter sends them a meme of encouragement and of hope. And those are so important. I was talking to Miss Dupree this morning, and I was driving up to Fuel. I shared this story on the Facebook live last week, but and I was driving up, and remember Friday it was gray and there was snow coming down, and I'm driving up to Fuel, and I think it was 11:30ish or something like that, and the sidewalk, it was quite a sight. The sidewalk underneath the awning at Ferndale Upper Elementary was just filled with books. Like every child's books were laid out separately, presumably by teacher and by grade. And so there's this little stack for every child, and it fills the space underneath the awning. And the staff did this amazing job, and they're all there, and there's about a half dozen, at least at the door I was at, there were a half dozen staff in masks, and you pull up and roll down the passenger's window, you give them the information as which child, you pop the trunk, put the stuff in the trunk, close the trunk, and drive away. And I've had some moments, you've probably had some moments too, where it just seems to rush. That was a moment for me when it rushed over, because it felt like, and I don't, this is not a comment on the staff or on the situation, but just the situation felt like death. And it took me a couple of days to think about that. Like, why did it feel like that? Why that moment? Why did that feel like that? And why would I use that word death to describe it? And then I realized it's because something has changed. Something has changed dramatically. And we don't know what's next, and I'm absolutely not ready for it. I'm not ready for what's next. I'm not ready for the changes that are going to happen for the next year or 2 years. I'm not ready. Yet, as the elders say, but God. We need those outside memes, those outside encouragements, because we're fragile. Life is fragile. Our egos, our emotions are fragile. Life wears on us and it distorts reality. Right? Because our feelings are our feelings, and our feelings are real, but our feelings are not reality. That the reality is there's this other thing, this thing that Peter sends to the churches, living hope, an imperishable inheritance, the salvation of your souls. We are here to remind you today, to remind each other that trouble doesn't last always. But even if it did, we have the tools of community and God's liberating power to press through, to not only survive, but to thrive. because the tomb is empty. We have this ancient message that carries us, that carried the ancestors, and will do the same for us, that no matter the obstacles, no matter how often we stare down death and destruction, we have life and we have it abundantly. There is a God on whose arms we lean, that not only will, but already has granted us salvation, granted us life, granted us community and communities, the body of Christ near and far. That may that body may not be physically touchable right now, but it has been deemed by God imperishable.